Okay, things you can do with your Swiss ball. Firstly, you want the right size Swiss ball. Mine is, it normally says it on it, mine's 65 centimetres in size. I'm 5'6", and this is good for me. I can sit on it without my knees having to bend too much. If it's too low, it can put a fair bit of strain on your knees. So you want one big enough for you, and you want one that's inflated enough to be quite firm. I've got mine quite squishy because it makes it more challenging. If you're starting out with a Swiss ball, you want it to be as firm as possible because it's easier to get used to, basically. So first thing I use my Swiss ball for is as an office seat, and literally I use it as my chair. You have to be careful because when you stand up or move, it can roll away from you, but it's really helpful for just sitting on. Makes you train your belly and back muscles. It makes you hold yourself. You can't really slouch, you've got nothing to lean on. So sitting on it for periods of time can just help to train the core muscles. You can move around, you know, you can wobble a bit, you can let it move as you're, I tend to notice if I'm talking on the phone, I'll move a bit, but you can certainly let it move, and it's just going to keep you moving. And similarly, actually, sometimes I'll pop it against something behind me, take my feet off. You can be quite playful with a Swiss ball. So, first use for a Swiss ball, definitely as an alternative office chair. We can use it to train the lower body doing a wall squat. So what you want is the ball right in the small of your back, and you want your feet quite a long way away from the wall. We come down into a squat and back up, and you can really press against the ball. Kind on your knees, works your glutes, and if you were doing a little routine with this, then certainly you could do a good set of 12 or so of these. What you could also do is hold it, so come down into a low squat. See if you can hold it for 30 seconds. You'll feel it right under there, but it's one way of helping to train the lower muscles with a little bit of support. Feel back and for the knees. And then we can, if you bring the ball so it's going to be underneath your heels. My legs are straight for this one. Arms are out wide to give me a little bit more support, and I'm going to bring my hips up. So it's very much like what's called a bridge, which you'd normally do with your feet on the floor, but just with the rolling ball, it makes you have to work a little harder to get the weight of your hips up. Now, what you want to make sure is that you're not arching your back. The object of this isn't to take your belly as high as possible. You want to tuck your bum underneath first, and then carry your hips up, but but as I say, not arching the back, keeping your belly quite flat. Makes it slightly different what use of the muscles around the hips. Not coming up too high. If you want to make life more difficult for yourself, take your arms off the floor. If you spread eagles along here, it will give you more stability, and what we're trying to do is lose the stability if you're feeling like it. So bringing your arms and your shoulders off the ground just makes this a little more difficult too. Okay, from there we could also lie on it. So I'm going to put the ball kind of between my shoulder blades, flop my arms over the side. I'm going to, as I say, these are playful. It's one of the reasons I like it. So I might fall off, who knows. I'm going to make a bit more space. Point the toe. Take the foot off the ground, point the toe. Okay? You have to kind of bring your base foot into the middle a little to do this. Pointing the toes. Feel those on each side. And then we come to here. We're going to do a back raise. You need something behind you for this. So I'm going to support my feet on the wall. I'm going to get the ball underneath my hip bones. And with my fingers on the temples, I'm going to come down and up. Really uses the back muscles. And again, your other core muscles are having to stabilise you because you're on something round and squishy. Okay, from there we can come down onto the knees. We're going to do a thing called a pot stare. Elbows are going to dig into the ball. I want it a little further away from you. And we're going to take, if you imagine leaning forward, the further back you are, the more comfortable this is. So by all means start here with your thighs vertical. We're going to use the elbows to bring the ball in a circle. Half a dozen in one direction, maybe half a dozen in the other. And then as you get used to that, the more you can take your body weight forward, the more you can take your hips forward, harder this is. So my belly's having to really contract, particularly to bring the ball back towards me. It's got to stretch, let the ball go away, contract, bring it back. Okay, and then from there, we're going to bring the ball underneath our hips. Something called a Superman. So, opposite arm and leg are going to come off the ground and hold. What you're aiming to do is to make your arm and your leg a straight line with your spine. You're not rolling your hips either way or your shoulders. You're keeping them quite square, parallel with the floor, pointing away. So that's 7 things you can do with a ball that's quite straightforward. If you're enjoying this and you want to take it a little further, some slightly more advanced moves, we have something called a windscreen wiper. And I'm keeping my shoulders on the ground, I'm keeping my upper back on the ground. I'm going to take the ball as far over one side as I can, back up as far over the other side. Gentle rock through the hips. You feel a real stretch around your lower ribs, around your obliques. As far over as you dare, as far over as you can control. But don't overdo it when you're getting used to it. Another one is to take the ball from here, funnily enough, place it into your hands, bring the ball down to the ground and your feet down to the ground, and then lift the feet back up, ball back up, put it into your feet, and then take the ball back down to the ground. Now the battle with this is to not arch your back. You want to hold your spine in a neutral position while you gently pass the ball from your feet to your hands. Okay, a little while ago we did a hip raise, going to make it harder. So we started off doing a hip raise with the legs straight. If you bend the knees and dig the heels into the ball, again, if you spread your arms out, it'll give you a little bit more stability. And actually, if you put the ball against the wall when you're starting this, it will give you a little bit more stability. And again, neutral spine position, you're not arching the back, tuck your bum under a little bit, bring the hips up. This really works your hamstrings as well as everything else. I don't know if you can see, the ball wobbles as I move, so I'm having to really control it, and partly I am using my hamstrings for that as well as my core muscles. It's really up. Okay. And then we have a thing called a jackknife. Where we're going to bring the ball quite a long way back. You need a fair bit of space for this one. And then I'm going to launch myself so that the ball is underneath my knees or shins. From here, knees up to my chest, stretch back out. A few of these. The further the ball is
away from your belly button, the harder this is. So as you get used to it, you could take the ball right back so it's against your shins or your ankles, and then try and bring your knees to your chest. Okay, and then finally, in this little routine, we have
a plank. And you'll be used to doing the plank, if you spend any time with me, you'll be used to doing the plank on the ground or on a bench, long armed or short, or on your forearms. We're going to take the forearms into the ball. One tip actually is to keep your feet apart a little bit, you're more stable. And we're going to come up into a plank. Now you're not resting your belly or your chest on the ball, it's just your elbows. And you're going to hold this for as long as seems reasonable.